Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules and joining us for this up-to-date webinar. We try and house them every so often just to ensure that clients are sort of up to date with regards to the particular program. So thank you so much again for taking the time out of your evenings, spending a bit of time away from kids and whatnot. So I hope to say that it's not a bad thing. There's many familiar names, so thank you so much for everyone again for joining the webinar. And the scene is that it's 7 o'clock already. I hope everyone can hear me loud and clear. 21st of September, this is our third or fourth live webinar that we are hosting. Again, just to give a little bit more of an update as well as a breakdown as to how these particular programs work and what steps are ultimately taken, when families start this process with us. So again, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're just going to be waiting for a few more people to enter the lobby. But in the interim, what I'm going to be doing is just having a bit of a trivia to start off with. Some interesting stuff that I actually did not know of. So again, guys, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules and evenings as well from family and whatnot. We'll of course try and keep this short, sweet, and to the point. So 21st of September, this again is around about our third or fourth live webinar, just to give families an update as well as a breakdown as to the particular steps and services that New World Immigration is going to be rendering throughout the process. So a bit of trivia here for everyone. When was New World Immigration founded? You've got your 4 options there. New World Immigration was founded in 2009 by a gentleman by the name of Robbie Raglas. Our head offices are based in Century City in Cape Town, so not too far away from, it's about a 20-minute drive from Cape Town CBD. If you visit one new beach in Australia every day, how long would it take you to see them all? If you think of it, before the answer, well, the answers come through beforehand, but South Africa, if you look at South Africa as a whole, you'd probably be able to fit South Africa into Australia a good 5 to 6 times, just to give you an idea as to how big this country is. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Again, I know that it's taking about 45 minutes to an hour away from your family. But I guess this is quite an important conversation and topic that we're going to be covering this evening. And there's going to be a lot of questions or queries that are going to be answered throughout this presentation. So I'm very grateful to have this opportunity with each and every one of you and taking the time out and joining us. So how many families has New World Immigration assisted thus far? 7,500. I think we've actually gotten to the number of around about the 8,000 family in the most recent weeks. So yeah, that number has definitely been bumped up. What is the capital of Canada? You'd always think that's quite an obvious one. You'll be quite surprised. Ottawa. How many years of combined immigration experience does New World Immigration have? It's always good to know that whom you're dealing with throughout this process. You know, it's a very personal, it's a very touchy subject, and it's a massive step. So whomever you're working with, of course, it's always great to know that they've been around the block for a number of years, and of course they understand exactly what goes into the nitty and gritty of government departments and legal paperwork, etc., etc. So between 60 and 80 years combined. True or false, Australia is the only continent in the world without an active volcano? It's true. What percentage of the world's fresh water does Canada have or house? 20%. Right, what is Australia's national animal? I think this one is a pretty obvious one. Your kangaroo. All right, guys, so we just finished off the trivia there, just something to keep everyone a little bit busy whilst we're just waiting for everyone else to join us this evening. So again, I'd like to reiterate my gratitude and really thankful for each and every one of you to join us this evening for our 4th live webinar. They've been extremely effective in providing a lot of insights, a lot of help, and it sheds a lot of light as to how these particular programs work, why you qualify as a professional. And by the way, each and every one of you that has joined this webinar have already been in contact with New World Immigration's consultants. Of course, I'm able to see quite a number of familiar names, that I've been dealing with over the last couple of weeks to months. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and it's going to give us an opportunity to really go through each particular part of the process, an introduction of why this process is available, the onboard process, what actually takes place when we bring you on board, as a family. We'll go through a highly important part of the process as well. What are our registrations and what registrations we have in place? The client portal. Those of you that have not yet been on that portal, I will highly recommend going onto that yourselves after this webinar, but I will, of course, be there to take you through that. Very exciting times for New World Immigration. We've launched a recruitment division to assist a lot of the families that we bring on board to essentially help them navigate the job markets, in countries like Canada as well as Australia. Gone are the days where you simply put together a CV, send out an email, and sort of hope for the best or hope something sticks. There's a far more effective approach that we take that has definitely become a lot more fruitful. And then finally, the important parts of phase 1 surrounding this process. All right. So I'd like to get on to a very important topic, of course, what takes place on the onboard process, on the onboarding process, as they call it. So upon starting the process with us as a family, the first thing that we start doing is compiling an application from your initial consultants that you've worked with. So whether it may be Leo, whether it may be Mark, whether it may be Amy, Jamal, or myself, and of course, we'd then be able to assign a case manager as well as 2 other individuals to your profile. So ultimately, you have a team of 4 individuals constantly working on your profile from beginning to end, right? So there's many eyes on your profile. There's a lot of support and guidance and communication from various avenues and various people throughout this process in New World Immigration. So you've got that sense of security, of course. Now, once we have brought you on board and assigned you over to your case manager, we'll then start providing you a checklist of various documentation requirements as to what it is that we'll require throughout the process, which is going to be a subject I'm going to be covering within the online portal that I'm going to be getting through to shortly. Right, so our registrations, let me actually just move this one side. So our registrations, as you will see, we of course registered throughout the various countries that of course we focus on. So a number one key factor is the individual or the company or the entity that you're working with is the immigration firm that is going to be assisting you. Are they registered through the relevant boards? So yes, indeed we are. we have this information available on our website. We, of course, have this information available on our signatures. So if you take a look at any of the emails that you've received from your consultant, you'll actually see on the bottom hand of the signature, it will actually state their accreditations, and it'll go from, I think it is Australia, Canada, et cetera, et cetera. So it'll actually give you all of that as well. It'll take you directly to government sites as well, so you can get further clarity on whether or not your agent is registered through the relevant board. Right, so I'm just going to pop out here quickly and then take you through to the portal. So the portal is a space that New World Immigration, Robbie Raglis, our IT team in the UK, as well as Carlos, have been developing this particular space to really ease and allow a family to understand the complexities around immigration and really simplify that as much as possible. Paperwork and admin and whatnot can be quite a boring subject, you know, whether you like it or not. I'm sure after a couple of hours of paperwork at work, the last thing you really want to do is, of course, get home and try and deal with paperwork and, you know, get stuck into the nitty and gritty of that. So we've developed this portal, and it's an ongoing system that we've developed over the years and will consistently do so to better the space as much as possible. So when you've logged on, by the way, this is a dummy profile. It's just an example. I'm sure you can see that is quite a familiar actor, but that's just an example. Now, when you log onto your client portal, you'll be able to rate the service delivery that you're actually receiving throughout the process. So we can constantly monitor the level of support and services that you're receiving throughout the 12 to 14 month process. So we're constantly monitoring this on a day-to-day basis from a management perspective. So when you log on, you'll be able to take a look at an application status bar, which allows you to see exactly where we are within the process from beginning to end. And you have access to this portal 24/7 from wherever you are, as long as you've got access to the internet, right? So whether it's from your tablet, your smartphone, you know, your laptop, computer, et cetera, it allows you to access this portal. So as I mentioned earlier on, you'll constantly have a team of 4 that are going to be assigned to your profile. So you'll know exactly who's actually working on your profile, who you're able to communicate with throughout the process, et cetera, et cetera. It allows us to also understand, and yourself as a family to understand, the documents that are collected and what is outstanding, right? Now, one of the most important parts of this process is, of course, collecting information that's required and what is either Canada or Australia or the United States, et cetera, et cetera. What are they ultimately looking for in terms of documents? So we've been able to simplify this process. For an example, providing you with templates, examples that you're able to download from the online portal once you've become a client of New World, to understand the document that we'll need, to understand the documents that either Australia or Canada or the US, for an example, will require. So, you know, you're not going to be running around trying to understand whether or not this document is going to be accepted, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the online portal also allows you to have direct communication with your case manager, you know, similar to WhatsApp, but of course it is directly linked to the portal, and there's constant communication taking place via the portal, by Zoom, as we are this evening, by telephone, et cetera, but at least it allows you to find out, you know, is this document, you know, whatever comments you'd like to add to it, you know, you'd be able to upload the documents. Is this document adequate or accepted? The case manager is able to receive instant notification of that document. And once we've reviewed it and we are satisfied with that, this area will actually go from this peach color to green, which then allows us to move on to the next document. And as we go through this process, we'd be able to tick off milestone documents that we've gone through. So again, this is just an example, but this is ultimately how we collect and compile your case throughout the process, right? You've got also another interesting feature here, your calendar. So there are important dates that are going to be set throughout this process, such as booking for an English language test. So you'll be able to book for this test. You'll be able to have reminders, etc., etc. And that way everyone's on the same page as to what's been booked on what dates, etc., etc. For a medical as well, or any other particular important milestones that need to be booked for, and everyone's reminded of that process, right? Another really, really interesting benefit and feature of the portal and New World Immigration Services is our Relocations department. This is a department that we have been developing for a number of years. And again, like the portal itself, we're constantly, working on. So when it comes to conversations outside of paperwork, immigration, etc., etc., you've got areas that you need assistance with. How do I get my pets over? I've got 3 Labradors, and I don't know what other interesting pets a lot of your families might have, but at least this will allow each and every one of you to really understand what the cost of a pet or pets would be to take over to Canada or Australia. And what's really positive about our partners, whether it may be through property, assistance with documents, freighting, pet relocation services, because you're using our partners and we're driving a lot of opportunity or clientele to these partners, we'd be able to get our clients reduced rates, heavily reduced rates, to accommodate each and every one of you financially, right? So that is a massive area where a lot of families tend to also save a lot of capital when it comes to these particular subjects outside of the immigration sphere. You've got another tab called the Accounts and Payments tab. This is just an example. This person is 28 days overdue. I think we need to give him a ring. But what actually allows us to, from here, is a client is able to log on, make various payments, whether it may be for our services or third-party payments. You'll be able to do that effectively from the portal. And as you'll see here, it has a secure socket layer, which means that any particular document or payments that takes place via this portal, it is as secure as logging onto your FNB app for banking or Standard Bank or Investec, etc., etc. Right. You've got another area of country info. So there's a lot of conversations around climate, for an example, in Canada, right? You may have laws or regulations that you might want to understand in certain parts of Australia. Topics that I might not necessarily get into, or at least conversation, or diving into these particular conversations with a lot of my clients or my colleagues for that matter. These particular PDFs that you're able to download and not just view via the portal, you'd be able to download these, and they're about 110 to 120 page documents that gives you a lot more information about that country. So it gives you a lot more insight as to what is expected of you, or from you rather, as a family. What should you do? What should you have in the first week or 2 weeks or month or 3 months by the time you get there, or before you get there, right? So it really prepares you, throughout the process that we're going to be assisting you with, right? And the final one here is PayScale. So we've actually partnered with a very well-known online company known as PayScale, which allows you to understand for your profession, in which country as well as city, you'd be able to select the appropriate qualification or the relevant qualification that you might have, or your partner or spouse may have. And then the number of work experience that individual has, and by submitting that, it will actually give you a very formal breakdown of what your expected compensation would be per month or per annum as ex-professional. So this is a space that we're going to be working with each and every one of our families throughout the process. Now, to come back to what I was saying earlier on, when we bring a family on board, you'd be assigned to a case manager. You'll have direct access to your online portal, and that is effectively where we start compiling and dealing directly with the relevant government departments on your behalf, as well as third parties. Right, so as I was saying earlier on, in the introduction of this webinar, we have developed a recruitment division as well. So this is a very, very exciting time for New World immigration. It's been a division that we've been, constantly trying to figure out how we'd be able to do this effectively. How are we able to assist families, now and in the long run, etc., etc. So I'll be happy to explain that to you as well. So beside the immigration part of things, there's a major consideration as to how am I able to secure work in that country, right? What each and every one of you need to understand is that you're on this webinar because of the fact that you meet qualifying criteria that your consultant has had with you, right? Whether it may be Canada, whether it may be Australia, whether it may be the United States, etc., etc., or South Africa for that matter. You've gone through very stringent and strict qualifying criteria. Your profession is in high demand in the respective country that you're looking to immigrate to, right? What we are doing here within the recruitment division is helping you navigate the job market whilst you're still in South Africa. So by the time you land in Australia or Canada, right, you've at least really understood the playing field. You've either been in contact with a recruiter or an employer, you've had, interview 1, interview 2, or you might have already secured a job through this particular division, right? So you won't only need to rely on your own avenues like LinkedIn or other particular avenues, through friends and family. This is a setup division that's there to accommodate each and every one of our family members that we bring on board to really understand the playing field and, again, navigate the job markets of the country that you're looking at going to. There's always an important part of any process as to what happens when we start this process, not from an onboarding program or who I'm going to be assigned to, but what actually takes place, right? So the first step that we bring you on board for is probably the most important phase any family will actually do for themselves. A major benefit, a major leap for themselves in the right direction, which is your skills assessment. The most important part of a skills assessment is to show the fact that your qualifications are recognized and on par with Australian or Canadian standards, right? If I'll give you an example, if you were to get into the job market of Australia, and I'm a recruiter in Australia, right? You are a civil engineer from South Africa, and you have a colleague of yours in the exact same position with the same qualifications, and that person as well was looking to get into the job market. But that individual has evidence that his qualifications are recognized and on par with Australian standards. If I have 2 of your CVs, who out of the 2 am I likely to employ, right? It's making life a lot easier for an employer to understand that your foreign qualifications, yes, you'd completed them through Stellenbosch, UCT, UKZN, etc., but you've done the due diligence of having New World immigration, get your skills assessment done, your qualifications are recognized in Canada as well as Australia. It allows a route of action. It shows that you have genuine interest in looking at getting into the job market and securing work that side, right? It is also a requirement when you're applying for permanent residency. So when we're applying for residency or permanent residency over the next year or 2 years, that is a document that is mandatory. We need that document in order for us to apply for residency or permanent residency. And in many cases, you actually need that for a work permit as well. So I would highly recommend that each and every one of you happen to get back in contact with your consultants, as early as tomorrow, or even perhaps this evening, to really bed down a suitable time in starting this phase 1 approach. And of course, they'll just reiterate what particular steps will be taken. If there's any particular questions or answers relating to the costs or government fees to that, please get to that conversation so you've got real clarity on the process moving forward there. Right, so the next steps for each and every one of you that I would recommend, again, not only to get in contact with your consultants, but New World Immigration has compiled and prioritized a particular list of sectors and industries. I will read a few of them out to you now. Basically, what we've gone and done is that we've gone and prioritized certain amount of sectors within a certain period of time in order for us to get skills assessments done for these individuals. There's a number of reasons why we want to do that. A, states and borders are in the process of opening. Try and be as effective as you possibly can in getting paperwork sorted out, because the amount of foreigners that are applying to various countries around the globe are already doing that, right? They're taking the necessary steps in doing that, because the moment borders open, you can apply to that particular country. The moment a state opens in Australia, you can apply to that particular state. Without a skills assessment, you won't be able to do that, right? And we believe that each and every state across Australia and many parts of Canada will start meeting their quota per annum a lot faster than the average year over the last decade. The reason for that is COVID. A lot of people have been preparing, a lot of people have gotten the necessary paperwork sorted over the last year and a half since COVID hit. They've done their due diligence in getting a lot of paperwork sorted out. So by the time they can apply, when states open or borders open, they don't have to start anything at that point. They've already done their due diligence in getting what they need to get done now and applying as soon as they open. There's a good example of that where a family was looking to apply to the state of Victoria. Another family was also looking to apply to Queensland. And a big issue actually happened is that there were approximately 10,000 applicants looking to apply to Victoria. Victoria had closed in less than 7 hours. From opening to closing, they had closed, right? Within 7 hours. So it just gives you an indication that this is serious for a lot of people around the world. And if you're serious in applying to particular parts of the country, states or provinces, get that skills assessment done. Now, the point I was trying to get to earlier on, before I get off track here, is that there are certain sectors that we are looking to prioritize, which include the construction sector or professionals. It includes IT professions or professionals. It includes a large span of engineering professionals as well as medical professionals. To name a few, these are the sectors that New World Immigration will be focusing on until the 28th of September. What we're looking to do is accommodate a lot of families and candidates that are in these respective sectors with perhaps revised rates based on what your consultant has already issued you with initially, to A, accommodate you financially, but B, it allows us to start this process and get your skills assessments done as soon as possible. The sooner we're able to do that, the sooner we can be best prepared to apply for the next phase. I know of too many occasions that I've heard in the past where unfortunately either procrastination has taken place or individuals haven't really, thought about this seriously, and 3 or 6 months down the line, great, Leo, Sean, Jamal, Amy, Mark, whomever, let's start this process, and the country or the state has already met their demand or quota for that occupation, and that state closes until further notice. And that can become quite a frustrating part of the process for a lot of families. So to avoid that frustration, and to push sales one side and whatnot, this is not really trying to bring each and every one of you on board as soon as possible. It is a highly, highly recommended pathway for each and every one of you, to at least you're doing yourselves a massive favor. I'd like to end this off by saying that, again, thanking each and every one of you for joining the webinar. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And I will recommend and highly recommend that you get back in contact with your consultants. Find out if your profession is among the priority list of individuals that we're looking to accommodate financially toward the skills assessment. Let's see if you're part of that. If you are, discuss what it is that needs to be discussed with your consultants, and let's start arranging starting dates as from tomorrow with these skills assessments, signing you over to a case manager so we can start getting your documents in place. Again, the sooner we've got that skills assessment out of the way, the more effective we're able to start planning where in the country you're going to be looking at, where and what schools are we going to be looking at, what freighting and the costs of that, pets that are going to be going over, pets going to Queensland or Vancouver, etc., etc. What is that going to cost? We're only able to really understand a lot of those concepts or ideas once that skills assessment's done, because we can then start understanding where your profession is in high demand, right? So I'd like to end this webinar off, and again, thank you guys so much for taking the last half an hour in spending it with us at New World Immigration. And from myself and extended from New World Immigration, we look forward to working with each and every one of you. I look forward to hearing from the families and candidates that I've spoken to over the last couple of days, and I'm sure my colleagues are as well. So we look forward to for you being part of the New World Immigration team. Again, I'd like to thank you all very much. Have a wonderful evening, and goodbye.